Good morning.
On the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn. We were up at 4:30 this morning. Milk cows, work all day in the field. Milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past the night at a school board meeting. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up at night, all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, and then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from an ash tree, who can make a harness out of hay wire and rope, who during planting season and harvest time will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday, and then put in another 72 hours. This is a commentary by Paul Harvey that maybe some of you remember was aired at a Super Bowl advertisement for Dodge Ram trucks a couple years ago. And this is an idea, a nostalgic look at what a farmer was and is today. But farming today has a whole different image than it did when Paul Harvey wrote this particular commentary. This was actually a commentary was inspired by an article in a 1940s newspaper editorial out of Austin, Texas, and it was describing what a farmer, it was the Stockton Farmer Journal, and it described what a farmer was coming out of the Depression, looking at the resourcefulness of the farmer. But farming has definitely changed from what it was when he wrote this and what it is today. I like to give an example. How many of you remember telephones that had a wire that was attached to the wall that had a rotary dial? How many people have those today? How many people have cell phones? Are you the same person that picked up the receiver with that phone that went to the cord went to the wall as you are today with the cell phone? You probably are, but things have changed. I like to look at it this way. When I was growing up, my dad taught us how to plant corn, and he said, whatever you do, make sure the rows are straight. Just because I don't want the neighbors to see crooked rows. Well, that was an art. Today, with GPS and all the fancy technology we have today, the farmer can plug in his GPS, he can turn the planter at the corner of the field, plug in that, and he can play cards to the end of the field because that tractor is going to go straight and the rows are absolutely straight. So things have changed, but the farmer hasn't. The late President Eisenhower grew up on a small farm in Kansas, and he never lost touch with farming. He knew how to milk cows, he worked in a creamery, he knew how to prune trees. But he one time made the statement in a speech that he made that farming looks easy if your plow is a pencil and the cornfield is 1,000 miles away. And unfortunately, for the majority of the population of the country today, that cornfield is 1,000 miles away because they are several generations removed from the farm. I think the best way to give you an idea how farming has changed and what it is today is to give you a little bit of history. The Roman orator Cicero said, not knowing what happened before you were born, you forever remain a child. A child believes in Santa Claus because they have no basis on which to base their beliefs. And I think this is very true with people today that have lost touch with agriculture. I was born in Cuyahoga County, and west of Cleveland, and till I was 8 years old, we lived on my grandfather's farm. It was only 25 acres, but it was a farm that took care of the family. We had 3 cows, we had 200 chickens, we had orchards, vineyards, tomatoes, potatoes, what have you, and most of our product from that farm was sold locally through a roadside market. Some went to Cleveland, the Cleveland market. The cows were milked by hand. I learned to milk a cow when I was 6 years old by hand. I remember carrying the milk to the house and taking it to the basement, running it through a cream separator, Grandma making butter. Any extra butter we had went to Boone's Market. Any extra milk we had was sold to the neighbors. And this is how the products were marketed. Well, in 1955, my dad said, Cleveland's getting too close. If we want to continue farming, we have to make a move. So in 1955, he bought a small farm in southern Medina County near a village called Seville. And we started milking 25 cows. Well, back then we were shipping milk in milk cans, 10-gallon milk cans, which probably, in looking back at it, wasn't the best way to produce milk and ship it. But it was not a big deal back then because every morning the milk was picked up, it went to the dairy, and the next morning it was on somebody's back step in a quart jar, quart bottle. Well, shelf life wasn't an issue back then. But today, the dairies, and this is partly because of consumer demand, they want something with some shelf life. And the way we produce milk today, it has to be in a much more hygienic, clean environment, so there is some shelf life. In 1997, my wife and I moved to Knox County, again for the same reason that my dad moved out of the Cleveland area, because the city was getting close, and we decided if we wanted to raise a family and continue farming, we needed to be in a more rural environment. Medina County is a lot like Delaware County. It's growing very rapidly, and farmers are getting pushed out. On your table, there's a paper, and I'd just like to kind of go through this and just talk a little bit about our operation and what we feel is important.